Our third panelist is local. He drove the least amount of time here this morning. Curt Josiassen is a rice farmer coming from Richvale, just down the road. And Curt has been in this business of farming all of his life. He's a fourth-generation farmer down there in Richvale. And in essence, he began about 30-some years ago asking the hard questions about soil and soil health. He's an innovator. He started doing soil tests and started to take different approaches. One of the reasons we're working with him is he has side by side is some fairly conventional rice, although as we say about Curt, he's still regenerative in his mindset. He's been doing some regenerative practices even in that. And he has some organic regenerative where he's focused more deeply on trying to build that soil more rapidly. He's part of our collaboration also, as is Dale, with regard to some of our research, as we meet monthly and continue to go over what we're learning. Curt, we welcome you today to give us some of your thoughts about regeneration, farming, and we'd like to give you an opportunity here to give us your years of experiences and thoughts for the future. Please join me in welcoming Curt Josiassen.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. See if I can make this work. As Tim was saying, I'm a fourth-generation rice farmer. Our family started our farm in 1911. My grandfather came out from Nebraska after 2 years of baseball-sized hail killed his pigs and destroyed his wheat. The great scam that my family went through back in that day was we were told prime wheat ground. They knew how to grow wheat, so they came out and came to Richvale, which, if anybody knows anything about Richvale, our ground is heavy, heavy clay. It's the kind of clay that all the indigenous people built houses out of, so you know how hard it is, how tight it is. The rice in California is 20% of the total rice grown in the United States. It's a unique variety of cow rose, medium grain. And so we are all, as an industry, 425,000 acres, 90% of it is all medium grain. So we all compete with each other. We all fight for the same dollar, which creates a lot of issues. I, too, am a recovering Cal Poly alumni. And so I'll beg Cindy to not hold that against me. I have my daughter and 2 sons and their husbands and wives on our farm. I got into regen because of the fact that, here's a picture of our adobe clay during the summer. Our soil type does not allow any kind of multi-crop program or rice. When my grandfather came out, grew his wheat, the first year it did very, very well. The second year it got flooded out and got killed. So back in that time, we had a gentleman named E.L. Adams that was working for the Cooperative Extension that started playing with rice from Japan and trying to see if we could grow rice in California. Obviously, there wasn't the infrastructure here. The irrigation systems weren't here back in that time. We did have the Feather River, which allowed a lot of water for us to use back in that time. So my grandfather's first rice crop was in 1913. So we basically built an industry around a soil problem. So we are now basically a semi-aquatic system, which in a lot of ways helps because of the Pacific Flyway, all the ducks and geese that come down. And we are monoculture, which creates its own set of problems. In the past, these are the varieties that we have tried to grow chasing the almighty dollar. Red rice, black rice, medium grain, arboreal, Akita, wild rice, and jasmine, long grain jasmine rice. we're trying to differentiate ourselves from everybody else to try to chase more revenue. So when I came home, I graduated in '82. When I came home, our farm was doing very, very well. The price of rice was great. The year after I came home, the price of rice dropped from $13 to $7 and stayed that dollar volume for 20 years. We were all going broke. Our ground was getting tougher and tougher. So the amount of passes and the amount of fuel and labor and equipment that it took to get a crop in started to become more and more costly. So trying to go on a cost-cutting program, I started working around trying to figure out what can we do to cut our costs down. The other issue was we were going to chase the organic dollar. That was a revenue stream that our family had never done, but it was working and people were making money on it. So we decided to try to use organic rice as a different revenue stream. My town, basically, when I grew up, was a whole bunch of blonde-haired Swedes. We were all family farmers. We had the herd mentality. If somebody did better on their yield than we did, well, what did they do to get it? And so we were chasing all the same things that these gentlemen had talked about before. So we got into a program, an organic program, but being a conventional farmer, we didn't have anybody who knew anything about organics as far as soil and what was going on. Our PCAs were nitrogen, phosphate, potash, nitrogen, phosphate, potash. So we hired a soil scientist from Napa Valley who did grapes and got him hired, and we started working on what it meant to have healthy soil. So you got to think, our ground had been farmed for 100 years. We burned our rice straw every year. We put a ton of fertilizer on it every year. So you can imagine how hard, just like his experiment was here, how hard it was for us to do this. So we started down that road, and it takes a lot of time, at least it has me, a lot of time to be able to afford the inputs to keep building your soil, building your soil. The other issue we had was water quality, because all of our rice water drains into the Sacramento River. Sacramento gets their water supply from the Sacramento River. We got sued for our herbicides. We got sued for our burning, and they basically shut us all down from burning, and we had to solve the problem of the herbicides in the water. So we started going down this road, and you can imagine with the herd mentality in my town, when I had a half a mile of chicken manure on a runway, everybody was wondering what I was doing and why am I doing this. You got to have bumped your head. So talking with our soil scientist, we started a program of trying to get calcium back in the soil, to flocculate the soil, cut our costs down as far as our tillage by getting that calcium in the ground. And so actually now my neighbors are running their tractors 6 or 7 times over their fields. I'm running mine 3. So when you do an economic analysis of it, it's less labor, less fuel, and I tell you, tractors aren't cheap anymore. So when you're looking at a $500,000 tractor, that's a lot of capital that you're having to spend. So we are making great progress, and we are doing this study with Cindy and showing a lot of all that, and I'll show you a few slides of what our ground is. So now our current issues are the same again. We go from the 80s to 25. The price of rice has gone from 30 bucks, and the last cash sale that I heard of was $7. So you can imagine that kind of a hit on your revenue stream. It's huge. So everybody's going to start looking at what we can do again. So we're staying in the organic game. We are a regenerative farm as far as our organics, and that is working well. It's just a question of, can you get contracts? Can you get land ready to go? And because we still do quite a bit of conventional. So now we're up here in Sacramento Valley. We have senior water rights, but the regional board is coming after our water supply too. So we don't know how long we're going to have surface water that we're going to be able to use. Commodity pricing is an issue. Global conflicts. Many of you probably wouldn't even think about the Ukraine-Russian war that just had a devastating effect on our rice industry, because California grew all their seed for their sunflowers for Ukraine. The company basically packed his bags and left. So now you have all those acres that have to have something on it. With the price of rice as high as it was, we had the most rice we'd ever grown in the valley 2 years ago, 525,000 acres. The other issue is the war in Israel. Some of the markets that we depend on to keep our volume down is Jordan and Turkey. We have not been able to get a shipment of rice into those countries because of that war. So that puts problems on. So we got input costs, fertilizer, fuel, all that's going up. And being a farmer, as we say, you have to get a second job to be able to farm. So as I say, we are going down the same program that these guys are doing. We use chicken manure on our organic, but I also use chicken manure on my conventional, which I've been doing for years to try to help bring the soil health up. And we've tried different ways of straw management since we don't burn, and we have been doing cover crops for the last 20 years. So here's what, when I started, we were trying to figure out, how do we know where we are as far as our ground from the standpoint of what we've used over in the past? Well, my grandfather's house was a great example. He bought it in 1911. So we went in and pulled soil samples underneath the house and compared it to what now is our organic regenerative field, field 2. So you can look at what we've got going on. pHs are different. Calcium is down. Magnesium's down, way down. You got potassium. You can just go down this list and compare the ranch house and this first field 2 in 2000. And then we compared it to what we've had soil samples last year. So you take the humus, 4.4, our field 2 back in 2000 was 3.2, and last year it was 8.3. So we are making progress on all of this from the standpoint of getting our fields fertile again and easy to manage. And this is Chico State's research program. We pulled some of this off. You can't really tell. The gold color is where we are at a good level. The green color is where we're not, that we're trying to get up. And here's our soil health comparison down here at the bottom. Our conventional field is 24, and our organic field is 42. So we're feeling pretty good about the kind of soil health we're building over the years. Okay, so the question that we have as a family is trying to survive in the current crisis that's going on. And so the future of regenerative farming to me is kind of the way we're going to have to go, because it limits our use of materials that cost us a fortune. And hopefully we will be able to farm rice instead of just turning all of our ground into duck hunting clubs, which seems to be the most profitable thing people are doing these days. So anyhow, I thank you for your time.